This is the Journey Podcast. We highlight the journeys of our guests, where they've been, where they are now, and where they are going. Let's join them on their journey. Well, welcome to the Journey Podcast. Today we are joined by Stephen Krueger, and I'm excited to speak with him. He has a very storied career, a lot of different experiences, and Stephen really brings a really interesting experiences to the table with his career. So I'm really glad to have Stephen with us today. Thanks for being on the Journey Podcast today, Stephen. Tell us about your business and what you're doing right now, so we can understand a little bit more about your journey and how you came into the role you're currently in today.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Nate. I appreciate you taking the time here to help me tell my story.
Absolutely.
So what I currently do is I run back-end operations for a real estate fintech company. We have one local office down in South Florida, but we operate in 31 states across the country, have hundreds of agents and support teams all over the place. And I am, like I said, in the back-end operations part of it. I grew up in Chicago. I moved down to Florida about 15 years ago, so I don't miss the cold. But I enjoy it down here. It's kind of like a whim that I just moved down here. I decided just on a weekend, I was like, you know what, I need a new place to go, and I moved. So
was that prior to family that you did the move? It's a little bit more challenging to say, hey, we're packing up the kids and leaving today.
Yeah, definitely not like a Vegas vacation or anything like that. No, it's it was previous to that, and the story behind that really helped me decide that Florida was a place to be. Is I was working at a construction management job, and I was I was making good money. I was happy with it. It just didn't feel like the right fit anymore. And I was looking around different places, trying to figure out what was my next move. And I was like, you know what, I've been in Illinois, I'm 25 years old. It's, let's branch out. Let's look around us. So I came down to Florida for a week in vacation. This was 2005. And it was the week that Katrina hit Louisiana. So that was like all over the news. And I was like, I'm in Florida. I was like, what do I think about hurricanes, things like that. But I realized, I was like, if I'm going to make a move, I'm just going to make a move. So I packed all my stuff, and I came down a week later, I came down a couple months later after I cleaned up, everything above and finished all my projects and things. And I moved down October 15th of 2005. That date rings a bell because the following Friday is when Wilma hit Florida and decimated South Florida, like decimated it. So my welcome to Florida is I moved down on a Friday, get myself settled for 6 days, and all of a sudden I'm in a house with no power, no electricity, nothing for a whole week and a half.
Wow.
So I just bought my groceries. I have the fridge stocked, just, looking to live the Florida life and enjoy, and bam, a hurricane hits you.
Little did you know that actually was the Florida life, right?
Yes.
You would know better.
Yes. And, growing up in Chicago, it's just like, you used to tornadoes. So tornadoes hit, you get, 30-minute warning, like whatever. But like hurricanes are coming, you get a full week. And like all I saw when I first came down here was just like gas lines everywhere. Like everyone was packed up everywhere. And I was just like, this is strange. Like, if a storm comes, you're like, whatever, you can just deal with it and stay in your house. But being without power for a week was something eye-opening. And I was like, you know what, I made it through this. All I had was a battery-powered radio that I could listen to my Sox win the World Series that year. And I was just like, you know what, I'm here, I'm surviving. I made it through by myself with no one else around me, no one else I know, because I'm only here for a week. And, all my family's back in Chicago. So I was like, something happened outside of my control and I was able to get through it. So I might as well stick around and see what happens.
So
So,
that's how you ended up in Florida. So I'm interested in understanding what a real estate fintech company is. That's where you said you're at right now, and maybe we can
mhm.
work backwards from that a little bit. So what does that mean? I haven't heard real estate and fintech necessarily in the same category.
Sure. So we have a traditional brokerage like any other real estate company, but we are different and unique because of our particular marketing program is driven by data. What we do is we essentially, instead of going up and paying for billboards, going to networking events, knocking on doors, trying to get business and listings, we go out to the homeowner and directly offer a financial incentive in exchange for signing an agreement that if and when the homeowner decides to ever sell their home, they use us as their real estate company. So
Interesting
it's a way
strategy.
to have an agreement together with the homeowner for the life of the time that homeowner's in, within their property.
Hmm. So kind of like a pre-contract when you're ready to sell, it's already in place, kind of like a pre-planning
Mhm.
service, essentially. That's
Yep.
a that's a different strategy. So you're in the operations role with your company. And how would
Mhm.
you say that your career has prepared you for this role that you're in today, and maybe the roles that you're going to go into in the future?
So, and I bring up the hurricane story because it plays a significance in all the careers that I've had down in Florida. And this one in particular, because real estate is such a fast moving industry, especially now, with how hot the market is. Um, it has allowed us all to be all hands on deck all of the time. There is no red tape. There is no, waiting 3 or 4 weeks for a decision. There is no, let's have a conversation now and 6 months down the line we're ready to make a decision. That doesn't exist anymore in real estate. Like if you want something, you got to go out and go get it.
It was very
So
fast.
yes, absolutely. So that's where I come at it with the hurricane story. Is I just decided to do it and I did it and I was successful. I went through a week of not the best circumstances, but I made it through and I'm a survivor. So in the real estate industry, that quality really sticks with me and allows me to benefit greatly because I'm able to make quick decisions. I'm able to stick with it and understand that even though the outcome might not be the most perfect thing in the world, I can understand my success, I can understand my failures, and I can keep moving on. It doesn't affect me as I'm not down in the dumps. I'm not like, woe is me. Like I'm not that type of person. It's just allowed me to make those quick decisions and continue to keep moving.
So was the goal ever to be in the role you're in now, or what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I wanted to grow up, I wanted to be a Mustang mechanic.
Okay.
Like that was my goal. I wanted to work on cars. My dad always worked on cars. He had older cars, um, and it was very cool to understand that to be like him. Everyone wants to be like the role model, and he was mine. Um, as I grew older, that dream changed. Then around high school, I wanted to go into journalism. So I wanted to be an editor, not just a writer, someone on the beat, but more someone in charge of the pre-planning and the progress of the newspaper, as well as be able to develop the, where the stories were going, where the hot topics were, making those quick decisions.
Okay.
And then I got to college and, decided that probably wasn't the best career field because of how, where I needed to move and things like that. So I decided to stick with what I was good at, and that's in operational and workflow control.
So, and maybe you already told us a little bit about this with the hurricane story, but what's one thing through your career that happened that you really didn't expect to happen? Maybe COVID.
COVID actually was how I got my job, like, believe it or not. I was working, previous to the real estate company, I was working for a food manufacturing company in operations, and COVID hit. And as when COVID first hit, like, everything shut down, right? And as a food manufacturer, you depend on store traffic, you depend on the foot traffic that goes in and buys your product. So we
Right.
were drastically hit. It hurt a lot, and we had to trim down a lot in order to survive. And at that time, I was, looking what else was out in the marketplace, because I felt like I defined my role where I was, and I was at the top as far as I can go. So I took that, and I reached out to a few recruiters, and one of them really struck my eye, because the recruiter explained the job that I'm currently doing and what the company is doing. And because of COVID, fortunately, unfortunately, is how the company was able to grow. Pre-COVID, they were one office with about 15 agents. So like March of 2019, currently we're in 31 states with 500 plus agents.
Wow, that's huge.
Because we were able to take the in-office model and turn it into a remote model. So essentially make them franchises, but still under the same umbrella. So because of, like I said, fortunate and unfortunate, because of COVID, like, we were able to expand and grow like we did, because we realized we could make our platform remote and grow like that. So that's a lot of my responsibilities, are managing those offices, managing those agents, and understanding how to continue to grow and succeed.
What would you say is the most, like, the piece of your career that prepared you for this position the most that you're in today?
I would say probably the previous one I had, the food manufacturing job. That one was really my solid, what solidified me in the operations department. I had bounced around between customer service and finance and HR, and just started getting into project management and things like that, through my career, up until the previous one I've had at the food manufacturer. And what it allowed me to do with that, because we were a mid-level startup, is we're all wearing many, many hats. So I was able to take all my previous skills and put them into a direct flow. So it allowed me to take my customer service skills, my HR and finance, and then just product management, really kind of just, meld this role or make this thing happen. So I learned how to, forecast production runs. I learned how to work with the FDA on food audits. I learned how to, go through manufacturing spec plants and work on organic certifications. I learned what R&D and what goes into actual creating new products, new food products. I learned about ingredients, about certifications, what yellow number 5 actually means on a food label. Things like that. Like, I got a full dictionary of information, over the time that was there. And I think that really prepared me for where I am, because being multifaceted and being able to, not only as like a desire or a volunteer option, but more of a necessity, that I had to fill so many roles, that I understood that I could do that and continue to increase the knowledge and my skill base in operations, and being able to work with the workflow there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of a neat story that you were able to come into kind of a completely different type of company, but really do a lot of the same roles, and that this company that was completely different from what you're in now really prepared you for it. Um, so you just never know kind of where things are leading, and being prepared for that. So tell me, what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now, and how are you overcoming it?
So the biggest challenge work-wise is adjusting to the schedules. Um, Real estate, you may or may not know, is a 7-day a week job. It's one of the few industries that just never stops.
Yeah.
Any other corporate environment, you're working 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 9 to 7, whatever it is, but it's usually Monday through Friday. And you might have the occasional weekends, but real estate is a true 7-day a week job. So the ability to be flexible with my schedule and still manage my personal life, my family. I've got 2 young kids at home who are active in sports, activities, Cub Scouts. I've got a wife that works full time as well. So just understanding how to balance my entire life and not make myself go crazy is one of the biggest challenges. But I've learned that I block out my calendars. I do bits and pieces where I might work, really, really hard, like 15, 20 minutes at a time on something, and then take a break and switch, and then come back to it, 20 minutes later. And I've learned doing that, like my day is not based on a time clock anymore. It's based on my productivity scale.
Yeah, I think that's so important to learn, to make that transition, maybe from more of that employee mentality to more of an ownership mentality, is maybe what you call it, where you really take ownership of your job, whether or not you are listed as the owner necessarily
Mhm.
of the company. So, what would you say is the most important personality trait that a person would need to do your kind of work that you're doing there?
I think it really has to be open-minded and, coupled with being driven. Um, the ability to understand where you are in a company and then where that company is going is huge, because you have to be able to see that, this is where I am right now, regardless of whether I'm happy. This is where I see the company going, and then this is where I see myself going. If you don't see yourself in the future fitting where you think the company's going to be in the future, then it's time to look around. It's time to, how can I make myself better? How can I make myself get to that point? But every career field has a defined map, so to say. So it has the ability to say, if I'm in customer service, I'm going to go from someone at a desk counter, at a gas station, or a local convenience store, and I'll work my way up. So I might start running, that entire division, like the VP of customer success, for a major Fortune 500 company. But every particular department has that path, and you just got to understand where you need to get to that point, whether you get extra certifications or extra skills. um, it requires the being driven to understand where you want to be in the future, no matter what's around you. Building that calendar of juggling your family and your business life and everything else, helps you get to that point, because you have to make goals, you have to put them out in front of you, and you have to keep just chugging along.
So, if you were talking to somebody starting out their career, maybe fresh out of college, what piece of advice would you give them as they're trying to figure out where to go?
I think the strongest piece of advice is, make sure that all of your online social media is what you want it to be. Everyone's got a TikTok, everyone's got an Instagram, things like that, but you want to craft your social media and your online presence. Nate, we were talking earlier about someone who shares my name, who happens to be a movie actor.
Right.
And it's interesting to me, because, like, if you Google my name, like, that's usually the first or the top result that comes up. Um, but for me personally, I've always done what I can to reflect on, is this something I really want the world to see? And if it is it the right projection of me out there? Because now, especially with how digital everything is, and we're not looking at a pile of resumes on a desk anymore. You might have, an applicant tracking system that just filters through, 99% of it. But the goal is to really show yourself as you want to be seen online, and then as well as get to that point that you want to aspire for those dreams.
Yeah, that's so important. It's very interesting how so many applications now, they just automatically can deliver to you the social media profiles of the people that you're engaging with. And it's made a much more powerful platform for people who are just trying to sift through things really quickly. And it's so important to realize that, they're looking at this very tiny window, and how are you displaying that to the world there? So you have a lot of good advice, a lot of pieces in your story. None of us get here necessarily alone. Who would you say is the most important mentor that you've had in your life?
My dad, when I was 6, 7 years old, he had that work ethic. He worked at a print shop. He would come home right around dinner time. We'd eat dinner, and then he would go out to the garage and he'd work on his cars, and he'd bring me with me. And he showed me that you can have a work life, you can have a family life, and you can have your own dedicated time to yourself. And that's what he enjoyed, right? He enjoyed working on the cars, improving them, and building. That was his hobby, right? And he, through all those years of him doing that, taught me that I can put things in buckets and still have a happy and successful life. Like I can set aside time for my business. I can set aside time for my family. I can set aside time for my personal hobbies and goals and aspirations, as well as what I do now also is set aside time for entrepreneurship opportunities. So it's just understanding the buckets and the calendar system is huge for managing your life.
Yeah, that's great. A great lesson to learn. So what would you say, maybe this question's already been answered in that one. It's kind of leads to the next one though, but what's one lesson that you've learned in your career that you think everybody should learn at some point?
Don't ever be closed-minded, and don't ever think you're the best person in the room. Those two go hand in hand, because if you, like the old adage goes, like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right?
Right.
If you have someone as a colleague that's telling you perhaps a different way to look at something, be open-ended. Like understand that maybe it's a great thing that they just suggested to you. Go investigate it, go understand it. It doesn't hurt you to do something like that as an alternative, because we all learn from each other. And feeling like that and portraying that to your coworkers helps them not only trust you when you come to them with your ideas, but it also allows that camaraderie and the morale to be together there. So, if you're working on a project and that coworker knows you're going to say no to every single thing that you give them, they're not going to suggest anything. And they might have a stellar idea, but they're going to be like, you know what, he's going to shoot it down, so I'm not even going to say anything. Versus if you're like, okay, well, let's go explore that. Let's go take a look to see if that's something that can make things better or more effective or efficient. They're more likely to say something, and that might win the day for whatever project you're working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good advice. So tell me, you talk a lot about how you have these different buckets. Um, how do you stay productive with that? You say you're working, somehow you're working 7 days a week within that. How do you stay productive? How do you keep organized in that? What would you say is the way that you do that?
So I use a combination of my cell phone for messages and things like that, reminders. At our company, we use Slack, so I use a lot of reminders through Slack. And then I just use a combination of calendars. One is just my central calendar on my phone, as well as my work calendar. And I have them merged, so it shows me every little thing that needs to happen during that day. And then if I need to add notes or things like that, I'll do voice memos and I'll attach them to a calendar thing. So even if I don't have time to write something down, I can still attach it there and I can still put on my calendar to review the day, at the end of the day there. So it helps me kind of keep track of things and not lose focus.
Would you say you're pretty much a 100% use the app's technology functions, or do you use any paper and pen still in some areas?
I actually have a calendar on my wall up top, and that just helps me keep track of the day. Understanding what month it is, what day it is, and it also helps me teach my kids how to manage their time as well. But to answer your question, 100% electronic outside of that.
So do you have like a specific time of day that you're more productive than other times of the day?
I typically, I typically am up by like 5:36 in the morning, and I'll have my breakfast, my coffee. I'll look at my daily schedule. I usually arrive in the office around 8, so I've got a few hours to get the kids going, get them off to school before I arrive at the office. And then on the evenings, I'm usually home by like 6 or 7. I'll eat dinner with the family, spend time with everyone. And then when the kids are in bed, I'll finish up whatever I might need for work or, other personal things. And then I'll usually be in bed by, 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, that's it's kind of a. Would you say that's 7 days a week, or is that Monday through Friday and then Saturday, Sunday? It's kind of what might come up type of thing.
Yeah, it's more of that. So when I mentioned real estate 7 days a week, that's for like the actual agents and things like that. I still
Gotcha.
work Saturdays and Sundays, but not as aggressive as a schedule, like during the week. So Saturdays and Sundays are, I'd say 90% family time. I put my phone down, I turn off my computer, and my kids know when I shut off my electronics that it's 100% dedicated to them. And we go and do, whatever we want to do as a family. I don't have to think about my phone. I don't have to think about my computer because, when I wake up Saturday morning, I look at my schedule and confirm there's nothing else that I need to take care of that day. Or if there is, I'll let my kids know, my wife know, saying, hey, at 10:30 today, I've got, something to do for work, and I'll be done by 11:15 or whatever it is.
So that's probably taken some work to develop a team that you can rely on, that they're going to be able to handle things, to be able to turn your phone off, because that's hard. They might need you, right?
Yes. It definitely was a challenge. It's here where we are right now. It's been a little over a year for us to get to that point with the team, because a lot of it has to do with trainings. A lot of it has to do with, like you said, like the trust and the ability for them to complete the objectives, wherever they are for that day. But it really just comes down to communicating that work-life balance, that they understand that these are my certain times that I'm just not available, and that's okay. And I communicate that and let them have their own time too as well. So like I have a coworker that can't do anything from Sunday between 2 and 5. Like that's their own personal time, and that's fine, because the rest of the team can jump in and support the company and the organization for that particular time. So we work well together. We understand each other's busy schedules, and we're able to make something that works, across the whole team.
So you've really had to develop some personal relationships, and it becomes really personal, it sounds like, at this point, to understand what everybody's dealing with and be able to support each other. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of heart-to-hearts. Just generally speaking, I when I try to talk to someone on the phone, I try to focus on the listening skills, because it's enough for someone to talk and talk and talk, and then you're like, you know what, I'm done. Bye. And if you do that with enough people on the phone, they're not going to want to talk to you, right? They're just going to be like, oh, he's just a talker, he's not a listener. So what I try to do in my work environment is I'm there, and if I have something to express, I say, look, this is what I want to talk about. Is there anything you want to bring up before we end this call? And then we go through everything like that. And then I'll make jokes. I'll talk about, how their kids are, how their family is, whatever it is. so that they understand that you can mix and it's okay to bring personal and business together in the same call and increase that bonding experience.
So how would you suggest our audience to help merge those two together, make business a little bit more personal, so people realize that they're people and they have things going on? What would be the first step in doing that?
I would say ask questions. That's the simplest, easy way to do it. You don't have to start big, like, what are your goals, in life? Like, just say, how's Arizona? I've been there once before. I was in Tempe. Where are you located? Oh, you're in Phoenix. So that's a cool. I've been to the airport there. I love the weather out there. It's dry. It's great. And you just start with the little questions like that. You don't have to jump into, you know, what did you study in college? Like, you kind of feel the person. Um, I always try to throw a little bit of self-deprecation in there as well, so they understand that we're all human. I don't do it too much because it's a very tight rope to walk between losing respect and then making fun of yourself. Um, but it really just becomes like breathe, relax, ask questions.
Yeah,
That's really the goal of anyone. Whenever you're speaking to someone, it's just finding more about you.
that's really good advice. I appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe just a little snapshot of your family? I know it's public. We try to protect them as much as we can. Are you able to give us just a brief snapshot of your family life, what that looks like?
Sure. So I have two kids. One's 8 and one's 4. Sorry, one just turned 9, and then one's 4.
They grow up fast. It's hard to remember.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah. They're wicked smart. They're involved in the 9-year-old's in scouts, and he's taking on volleyball, and he plays tennis and basketball as well. The 4-year-old's is in gymnastics, and is starting school at the end of the year. So they're definitely moving bodies. And then my wife, she's Brazilian, and we met here and we've been together ever since. She works full time in interior design as like a very high end design consultant.
Okay.
Um, so as you can imagine, like both our professional lives are extremely scheduled and busy, but we just make it work like everyone else.
Yeah, that's neat. So you have the operations and also the creative side. So has does that help you mesh really well? And I'm sure your house is like beautifully designed as well, living with an
Yeah.
interior designer as well.
I got lucky, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun because the kids get to see both sides of it. Like they get to see me with the organization, the productivity, building schedules out and activities and things like that. And they get to see her more flowy, more, spontaneous side and understanding from a visual aspect what looks great. Like the kids are always impeccably dressed, but not because we do it. It's because they understand style, color, and what mixes and matches together. So it's awesome.
Yeah, those are huge skills to have, especially in an ever-growing digital world, and understanding those things, really underrated skills, I think, for a long time. So I know you said you have some entrepreneurial pursuits. We haven't spoken about that too much here, but the one question I have is, if you could start a business, or if you would start a business, what would that business be?
I actually am in the process of starting one. It's been my pet project for the last year and a half, but I haven't pulled the public trigger yet. Um, but I I have built an app that essentially will allow um, retail traders like you, me, everyone down the street, the ability to trade on one single platform across all the different brokerages.
Hmm.
So I'm sure you've heard of like Robinhood
Yeah.
and E-Trade and all that. The challenge with that is being at a certain level financially, you're limited by certain rules. So what often happens is um, a a lot of us have to use multiple different platforms to keep all their trading and their investments going. So what we've built is we've essentially created a a single app to allow all your brokerages to be in one place and to be able to place your trades for those particular companies you want to purchase or sell in, and then choose the brokerage that you want to use. So it essentially brings it all under one house, one umbrella, including eventually we're going to bring in the bank system, so you're allowed to do your own deposits and things like that. So it'll be huge.
Wow, that sounds great. Looking forward to learning more about that. You've tried a lot of different kinds of jobs, all of them preparing you maybe for your entrepreneurial pursuit that you're launching here in operations. What's something else that you think you'd like to try sometime?
I'd love to travel. Like that was always one of those things, the careers that, the pie in the sky kind of career that would be an amazing career, but you're just not sure of how it would work out financially. But once I get to that point where I'm completely independent, I would love just the ability to go travel, write travel blogs, like understand the culture, really dive in and just enjoy it for the environment, the experience, rather than as a job.
So like the travel blog, a van life, RV life, travel, is that what you're
Yep.
envisioning? Yeah, that I think that would be a lot of fun myself, but I probably get tired of it after a little while. I'd like to do it for like a summer and then be able to come back home. I do like
For
home.
me, I would sell my home and just travel for a couple years. Like I would buy a van, drive all over North America, Canada, Mexico, go down to the South America. And then when I'm done with that, I'd find a way to get over to Europe and just keep going. Like that's what I would love to do.
That would be awesome. Stephen, I appreciate you being on the Journey podcast today. I got a couple of rapid fire questions we ask everybody at the end here.
Sure.
What are 3 books you would recommend and why?
That's a great question. Actually, are you able to put that on pause?
Sure.
I don't remember the titles.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me go get the titles real quick. So the three books I'd recommend is a book called 12 and a Half by Gary Vee. It really talks about bringing the emotional and the empathy into the workplace, but doing it so that you're successful. Sometimes in this black and white world of ours, we don't, we forget about our emotions, right? Humans are emotional people. So what he talks about in his book is just learning how to meld your emotional aspect in with your, your business aspirations. And then a second book, it was written a long time ago. It's called Fear. It talks about how a lot of the world that you live in is shaped by different stories, and understanding not just the top level of that story, but what drives that story behind it. Because we all have aspirations, we all have goals and dreams that we want to complete and obtain. But in order to get there, we have to understand what's in the backstory. And so this talks about a lot of the major stuff that's out there, and understanding, if a media story breaks and says, something happened, major, crucial, tragic, whatever, why that story led all the news outlets that day, instead of maybe something about, a kid winning a Nobel Peace Prize. Like why the news culture decided which story to pick. And I like that book because it gives you a full understanding of how to portray yourself, how to show that even though maybe what you're showing and what you think you're projecting to someone, it doesn't matter, because it matters what they're looking at, what they perceive. And that's what you have to really drill in and understand that. Like you and I are talking here, but whatever you think of me, whatever I think of you is just, that's our own thing. But me always showing my best self and getting to that point where I want to show who I am as a person, it allows me to be successful that way.
Yeah.
And then the third book it's a kid's book, but it has some adult values. At least I do, think it does. It's called Dragons Love Tacos.
Okay.
It was a huge bestseller when it first hit out, and they came up with a sequel and everything. But if you read the book and understand it from an adult perspective, it says that, dragons love tacos and they'll do anything for them. And you want to make the dragons happy. But the key ingredient with the taco is don't put hot peppers in the tacos, because otherwise they go crazy. And what ends up happening in the story is a little kid ends up making this huge taco party and ends up putting peppers in the tacos by mistake, because he didn't read the full label, the full directions. So the dragons go crazy. They burn down the house. They keep going. And the lesson that I take out of it is you can have such a large goal and aspiration that sometimes you forget the details, like the red peppers. So when you want to build a project, when you want to go crazy, when you're 150% motivation all in, make sure you pay attention to the small details, because that could wreck your project like nothing.
We have another episode with Tim Smith. Our audience can check out. He calls it minor multiplication, that concept. The little things make the big difference, and how we build those together. Great. I'm going to check out this Dragons Love Tacos book.
And the kids love it too. It's my son's favorite book. We read it every night. So it's really cool.
That's fantastic. All right. I'm starting a business today. What's one word of wisdom you would give me?
Don't give up.
That's great. I've asked you a lot of questions today, Stephen. What's one question you wish I would have asked you?
How did I get where I was? And the answer to that is I just kept moving. I just kept pushing. It's in this world, it's not enough to expect something to come to you anymore. You have to go out and grab it. You have to go get it yourself. Otherwise, it's not going to fall in your lap anymore.
Yeah, it's not going to come to you. All right, Stephen, thanks for being on the Journey podcast. It truly was a pleasure. Tell our audience how they can find more about you online if they want to connect with you and learn more about your story.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook under my name, and probably a variety of other social media, but I'm not that movie star, no matter how much you want to go. Link me there. I am not that person.
Not the movie star.
No, although I wish I would be. It would be cool. But yeah, you can find me online everywhere under just Stephen Krueger on LinkedIn and Facebook and everything else.
Well, Stephen Krueger, thank you so much for being with us on the Journey podcast today. We also want to thank our sponsor, Astoria, who makes all of this possible. Go check out trustastoria.com for your cybersecurity. We thank all of our guests for being a part of the Journey podcast, and ask that you like and subscribe our channel on your favorite podcast app or on our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us today again, Stephen. You have a great day.
You too. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Nate.